Hello, friends and neighbors. Let's talk about the importance of having a well.
Welcome to A Word for Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Each Wednesday you will find Boggs Family Ministries is here with our host, Davy Boggs. Having you along with us is a wonderful addition. Now, let's enjoy together A Word for Wednesday.
Thank you, Brother Devin, and thank you for joining us on A Word for Wednesday. We're talking about wells today. We're talking about water. Thank you for joining us on A Word for Wednesday. This is our last episode this year for A Word for Wednesday. Next week we begin a new year. We hope you'll make plans to join us. Invite your friends and your neighbors. I would love to speak to them about Christ. We give testimonies. We give sermons. We talk about great things that are going on in our lives and the lives of churches and others. And sometimes I do homilies and read sermons and just whatever happens. And we have a good time with it. And we appreciate several loyal watchers. Thank you for that. Thank you for leaving comments. Thank you for encouraging us along the way. You know who you are. And we really, really appreciate it very much. Today, I want to start with a little snippet of a video I will insert right here. Isn't that beautiful? Man, I love that. And since you don't know what it is, I'm going to tell you what it is and why it makes me so happy. I just received that video Christmas Eve. I got it in an email and immediately played it for my family and family members that were with us. And my heart is just rejoicing. It's bubbling over like that pipe was bubbling over. That well is a much needed well in Nigeria. It's on the church property, Landmark Christ Mission or Landmark Christ Gospel Mission in the city of Ibadan in Nigeria. Pastor Stephen Kuye is the pastor there, and they needed water so desperately. And now you can see there they have, it seems, a very abundant supply of water. I don't know how to measure those things, but if that was my well, I'd say, yeah, that's probably a well done. I really, really like it. Brother Kuye is a pastor there. He was one of Brother Shabanki's early converts. He got saved in the late 1960s. He's pastored there in Ibadan for many, many years. We met him in the fall of 2007 on our first trip to Nigeria. He came to the airport with Brother Shabanki and other men to welcome us into the country for the first time, and I got to know him then. 2 years later, I preached in his church. I preached a crusade for him on the grounds behind the church. I've been back several times to preach for him. We helped him complete his new church that he was in the midst of. The first visit we were there. We've helped several times with that as much as we could. We love preaching for him. We love his people. They've always been so kind to us. And he let me know before our last trip that he was going to try to bore a well there on his property. Whoever come to look at it felt like there was water there 100 meters or 200 meters down. That's a little over 300 feet or a little over 600 feet. And so I asked him what the cost would be in American dollars, and it was a good amount of money. It was an impossible amount of money for them, a good amount of money here, but not impossible. And so I told him the next day, I said, we're going to bring the resources to do that, because I saw immediately the importance of that, the importance of them having water. And I'll tell you more about what I saw in that in just a few minutes. But in that well, I knew we could do that. I knew we could give that amount. And so I committed to doing it. And later that day, I showed Kelly the email. And she said, David, we need to do that for them. I mean, there was no discussion about it. We both knew that needed to be done. If we had to shuffle funds, in our regular ministry account, if we had to scrape for funds in our personal account, if we had to sell pencils on the street corner, we knew that was a worthwhile project that we needed to make sure was done. And so I did mention it on our blog that we were going to do it. I didn't ask for help doing it, but two families immediately came forward, unbeknownst to each other, and they both said, we're going to give so much. And it was the exact same amount that they gave. And that amount together was half of the funds that we needed. And so I announced at where I was in revival that week, I said, we're going to drill a well for Brother Kuye in Nigeria. They need it. And I told them why they needed it. And I said, we're going to do that. And that pastor called me and said, after I was gone, he said, we want to be a help in that. I didn't ask for the help. I told them we were going to do it. And they said, we want to be a part of that. So they took up an offering and they gave the other half and a few hundred more toward that well. And then we added some more because I knew there would be other expenses. You got to have a pump. Yeah, they have to have tanks. They have to have pipe. Just there's always stuff that you need beyond the price that's estimated. And so we took that amount of money and I gave it to Brother Kuye while we were there. He was so glad to receive it. Right after we got home, while I was still in Tennessee, he called me and said, we have started on the borehole today. And I said, make sure you get some pictures and video. And Christmas Eve, the video came. I want to show you a little more of it right here.
We appreciate you, Brother David Boggs, for making this happen. Here, some of our pastors and some of our workers are saying thank you by a wave of hand, because for the first time we're able to use it in our Holiness Camp meeting.
And they give me thanks for that, but that's not on me. I did help make that possible. I kind of spearheaded it, but that is the people of God seeing a need and saying, we want to do that. And they did. And now that church has water. Abraham was a well digger. He was an altar builder and he was a well digger. And some of those wells are still flowing today. Can you imagine anything that you and I do in our lives still having an impact on people's lives 3,000, 3,500 years, 4,000 years later? Can you imagine? I can't imagine anything I will do in my life having an impact on people a couple hundred years down the road. But digging a well is a very good possibility. There's a possibility they'll be using that well at that church for years. But it's not only the church, and this is what I want you to know. You'll hear them say this. If you'll listen closely in the video, you'll hear them say, our Muslim community will have access to good water for free because of this well. This church is in the city of Ibadan in a Muslim-dominated community. And dominated, I don't mean meanly dominated. It's just more Muslims than others. They've been very kind to us when we've been there preaching for Brother Kuye. They've came to the crusades. They've always treated us kindly, the little access I've had to them. But they don't have water either. But now they do. And so people who don't know Christ, who reject Christ, are now going to have water for their wives, their children, their churches, their schools, their people, because of Christ-loving people sharing their good fortune, sharing their blessings with the people who don't believe in Christ. What an amazing blessing. There's a possibility this well will bless hundreds and thousands of people who need Christ. It is a testimony. People in the United States that love Christ provided the funds, and not just the people that gave. And I want to say thank you to the families in the church that gave. You know who you are, and I appreciate that so much. But everybody that helps us along the way, every revival, every time somebody gives us money for preaching, a portion of that goes toward our missions work and going to Nigeria and providing for the people of Nigeria. So really, all of you have had a definite part in this well that will be a blessing to hundreds and maybe thousands of people. I am thoroughly convinced, and I was convinced of this the day that I received the notification that they needed this well. I was convinced that very moment that people will be saved by receiving this water. The water's not going to save them, but the kindness of Christians receiving water from them day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. These Christians sharing their water with my family when I don't share their faith. I don't even like their faith. And they share this water, sharing the kindness of God's love and therefore sharing the kindness of God's word. There's going to be people that are saved because of this well. I believe that with all my heart. I'll play the video in its entirety for you. I want you to see it, and I want you to rejoice with me, rejoice with Brother Kuye, rejoice with his people. Thank God for water. Water is so important. Jesus spoke it to the woman who came to the well in Samaria. This water we need to sustain life, but the water that I give you is like water springing up into everlasting life. Thank God for water. And thank you, friend, for joining us. Stay tuned for the video right now.
Beyond words and way beyond the splash of this water was our joy at Landmark Christ Gospel Mission in Ibadan, Nigeria, when we saw the drilling that took place on our compound last week. We appreciate you, Brother Devin Boggs and Ministry, for making this happen. Here, some of our pastors and some of our workers are saying thank you by a wave of hand, because for the first time we're able to use it in our Holiness Camp meeting. There is now hope for the people of this Muslim community, as they can now have access to very good water for free. The 100 meters bowl beneath that slab is a blessing to the church, and we say thank you to Brother Devin Boggs and Sister Kelly for your support.
That is our word for Wednesday. We are so glad that you've spent a few minutes with us today. If you've been touched by today's episode, please share it with your friends and family. We welcome your questions or comments below or by email. You can find the email address in the description, along with a link to mile markers, the website for Boggs Family Ministries. Also, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Thank you again, and we hope to see you next Wednesday.
Ciao for now.